Okay, so when you hear the word Iran, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably something from the nightly news, right? Geopolitical tensions, nuclear talks, all that stuff. But what if I told you the headlines are only one side of a much, much older story? Let's get into it, because the Bible paints this really fascinating, almost contradictory picture of Iran's ultimate purpose.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. It's usually images of a pretty hardline government, right? International standoffs, military threats. And look, that's the lens we see the country through. It's unavoidable. But we're about to flip that perspective completely on its head.
You see, here's the thing. According to some ancient prophecies, Iran, which the Bible calls Persia and Elam, doesn't just have one destiny. It has two, and they're kind of competing with each other. One path leads to this huge cataclysmic war, but the other, it involves this incredible spiritual promise. And that's this dual destiny we're going to unpack today.
So to figure out where Iran might be headed, we've got to go back, way back. We have to look at where it's been. And you might be surprised to hear that the Bible actually holds ancient Persia in incredibly high regard.
Let's start with this first piece of the puzzle. Long before any of the modern conflicts, ancient Iran was actually cast in the role of a hero, a deliverer. It was a nation God used to protect and restore the people of Israel. I mean, that's a historical twist that makes its modern role feel even more dramatic.
Now, this is what's really wild. Look at the title God gives to the Persian king Cyrus. His Anointed. That term, that's a huge deal. It was usually saved for Israel's own kings and priests. So for God to give that title to a foreign, non-Jewish king, that's extraordinary. It just shows you how central his role was in the whole story.
And here's why. Cyrus the Great didn't just conquer Babylon and call it a day. Nope. His famous decree literally ended the 70-year Babylonian captivity. He freed the Jewish people, told them they could go home, and even encouraged them to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. He was quite literally the answer to decades of prayers.
But somewhere along the timeline, the story takes a dark turn. The Bible also prophesies that in the latter days, that friendly, protective spirit of Persia gets replaced by something way more hostile, and it all leads to a period of really intense conflict.
So this is the prophecy most people think of when they talk about Iran in the Bible today. About 2,500 years ago, the prophet Ezekiel had this vision of a massive, multinational invasion of Israel. Some people call it the War of Gog and Magog.
And look who's listed right at the top of the key players in this invading army? Persia, modern-day Iran. A lot of people watching global politics today look at the alliances forming over in the Middle East and they see this ancient prediction looking startlingly familiar. The bottom line is, in this prophecy, Iran is right at the heart of a world-shaking military conflict.
But wait, that is not the end of the story. Not even close. While that Ezekiel prophecy gets all the attention, there is another, lesser-known prophecy that reveals the second half of Iran's dual destiny. And honestly, it's a complete game-changer. Over in the book of Jeremiah, there's a really specific prophecy for a place called Elam, which was the ancient heartland of what is now Iran. And Jeremiah talks about a time of really intense judgment, a shattering of Elam's power, but it doesn't stop there.
This verse, this is the one that changes everything. Right in the middle of talking about judgment, God makes this jaw-dropping promise. I will set my throne in Elam. We're not talking about just protecting anymore. This is a promise of God's own divine, personal presence right in the heart of Iran. It's the total opposite of a military invasion.
So that brings up a pretty big question, right? How can both of these prophecies exist? How can Iran be both a lead enemy attacker and the home of a divine throne? This is the paradox, the whole puzzle of its dual destiny.
Well, the leading interpretation is that these prophecies are moving on two different tracks at the same time. On one hand, you have Ezekiel 38, which seems to be describing the destiny of Iran's government. That's the geopolitical path, the military conflict, the alliance against Israel. But then you have Jeremiah 49, which seems to describe the destiny of Iran's people, a path of internal spiritual revival ending with God setting a throne within the nation itself. So what does it even mean to set a throne? It's not about a physical chair, obviously. In theology, this phrase means a complete shift in identity and authority. It points to a grassroots spiritual awakening so deep and so powerful that it fundamentally changes the entire nation from the inside out.
And this, right here, is where ancient prophecy seems to crash into modern reality. You see, despite facing intense persecution, many mission organizations and researchers report that the underground Christian church in Iran is one of the fastest growing in the entire world.
This isn't some small fringe thing. We're talking about a widespread movement happening in secret house churches that is changing hearts and minds across the country. A lot of folks believe this is the beginning of Jeremiah's promise coming true, even while the government appears to be heading down the path Ezekiel described.
So as we watch the news, it's worth asking ourselves this question. All the political chaos, all the conflict, could that be the shattering Jeremiah talked about? The breaking of old systems to make room for something new? Maybe, just maybe, behind all the noise, a 2,500-year-old promise of revival is quietly being fulfilled.
So what do you think about all this? Do you see current events lining up with these dual prophecies? I'd love to hear your take on it down in the comments. And hey, if you found this explainer interesting, please hit that subscribe button for more stuff like this. Thanks for watching.